Welcome to the Architect My Life podcast. I'm Maya Schlachter, serial entrepreneur and CEO of the MGS Global Group, where we serve architecture and design firms with project delivery, such as drafting, 3D visualization, and graphics production support. I am also the founder of Architect My Life. My goal is to help creative entrepreneurs such as architects and other design-related professionals scale their business to 6 or 7 figures. I also show them how it's possible to do this while living a rich life outside their work, reclaiming time and energy for themselves and their families. Creatives were taught how to master their craft, but not taught how to run and grow a business. Each podcast episode features a different entrepreneur from the creative industry who shares their journey towards success. If you have a growth story that others in our community could benefit from hearing, stick around to the end of the show to see how you could be a guest in one of our future episodes. Now, let's dive into this episode.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another amazing episode of Architect My Life podcast. This is your host, Romina, and I'm excited about today's episode because we have an amazing guest. But before we even get there, let me tell you a little bit about our guest today, Dominique Davison, you guys. She is the founder of Draw, which is another type of architecture firm, you guys. The way that they think, speak, and design is absolutely very different, and it's a combination of expression of two singular characteristics that define them, which is deep listening and bold action. You guys should definitely go ahead and also check out their website, which is drawart.com, and that is DRAWARCH.com. Welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being a part of the podcast today. How's your day going?
It's going great. Thank you so much, Romina, for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And before we even get started, like I call it the juicy questions where we dive into the details, I want to pass on the mic to you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I'm the founding principal of Draw Architecture and Urban Design. We're based in Kansas City, Missouri. I landed in the Midwest after stints on the East and the West Coast. But we have found an incredible market here in the Midwest for opportunity and growth and community building with Draw, that we're excited to serve this area, but we're also working in other parts of the country as well, and even starting to work internationally. So it's a really exciting time.
That's amazing. And you guys, you can check out some of the projects on the websites too, because they're amazing. They have done project on civic and institutional so far, commercial, office, home, hospitalities. One of my favorite ones I would have to say was the fire station one, because it looks so fancy, and knowing that the firefighters are going on 24/7. That was a really good one. And I love the airport project too. So you guys definitely go check that out on the website. But Dominique, let me ask you this. How did you even realize you want to be a business owner, or kind of lunch separate and run a business on your own?
So I think I knew pretty early on that I wanted to have my own business. I watched my mom be an entrepreneur and start businesses out of our basement when I was growing up. And so I knew it could be done. I had a little bit of an inkling what it required in terms of, conceptualizing it and hanging your shingle and going out there and marketing it and selling it. So that she was definitely an inspiration for me. But my grandfather was also an architect. So I saw a bit about his practice and learned a bit about architecture. And that kind of got me excited about the idea as a kid.
But what would you say, though, was some of the biggest challenges or some of the biggest obstacles in running your own business? Because the passion is there, you have the motivation, but unfortunately we do run into those obstacles that sometimes either keep us stagnant or it makes us quit the position. But what has kept you going? And if you can mention 1 or 2 obstacles, that would be also the biggest lessons for you.
Sure. Well, I'd say the thing that really drove me was wanting to have an architecture firm that was focused on sustainability, that really had an impact on the community. And over the years, we've come to define what we do at Draw as positive impact design, a unique way of approaching design that combines aspects of architecture, urban design, sustainability and analysis, community engagement and outreach, and, trying to put that all together with a beautiful ribbon on top. So that's kind of the short way of defining positive impact design. And I think that need to want to offer that unique kind of approach was something that just really drove me from the beginning. It hasn't always been easy. I started the business in 2005. So just a few years later, we had that major market crash. And so what was a growing business definitely contracted, like all architecture firms did at the time. But we survived it, and we came out stronger with a more focused positioning, and we've been growing ever since. So that was certainly an aspect. I'd say another challenge besides, uncontrollable market issues was trying to balance home life and professional life. And as a woman, sometimes there's more of a double standard in our industry in terms of what expectations are for having a family and also leading a firm. So we had been at a firm back east that was pretty supportive and good, but required travel almost every week, and was really, really demanding. And it was a wonderful place for me to learn my craft. But I knew that if I wanted to have kids and have control of my schedule and be able to be home with them when they're sick, and still progress my profession, that I was going to need to take more control over my work life. And so the only way that I knew how to do that was to be my own boss, basically.
Well, what I love from it is that you had an obstacle, but you took it as an opportunity. So for instance, like you did mention females in the workplace environment, it is true, because even if you are in the C-level executive or whatever level you are, it's always more demanding. And the firm is not going to necessarily look at you like, are you female or male? They need the job to be done. But then you have to kind of look at things personally and say, what do I need to pivot here? And what do I need to re-strategize? So I love how you took that obstacle and that challenge as, okay, well, hold the gears. I'm just going to launch my own thing and make my own calls, pretty much, which a lot of times, and a lot of female entrepreneurs that launch their business and re-architect their life, and this is what the podcast is about. A lot of times they do that because they would like that work-life balance a little different compared to the traditional job, what a corporate job can offer you. So thank you so much for mentioning that, because we do see that a lot. As a female myself, I do not have kids, but I have that on my vision board, and that is also one of my main things of why I started my own business. By the time that I have kids, I definitely want to have things more aligned and not feel like I'm obligated to do that 9 to 5 or traveling and miss my little minions extremely a lot. So thank you for sharing that. Now, you also did mention where you guys had to pivot during 2009. Unfortunately, we are still kind of going through the pandemic globally right now. If you guys have heard the news, we're kind of going through a global pandemic, which I call it with 2020. I love the expression 2020 vision, but I feel like 2020 last year was a year on steroids. It's like 5 years condensed in one. How did you guys pivot business during COVID to re-strategize it? Because you also had a learning experience, I would say, from 2009. But what was different in 2020, and how were you guys able to manage that?
Oh my gosh, there was so much that was different about 2020. And we were incredibly lucky in some ways in terms of where we were in the timeline of many of our projects. We're working on the airport project, which is a massive municipal project, and just steamrolled ahead despite everything during COVID, which was, a massive blessing for us. We certainly had other projects that went on hold, and we had to start to really think about our portfolio of projects. And it's something that I have always thought about, maybe because of having come through 2008, 2009, 2010, was how do we diversify the projects that we're working on? So we're not so heavy on civic, or we're not so heavy on multifamily, that if for some reason those particular markets have a downturn, that we don't have something else going to keep our people busy. So luckily, we've been fairly diversified. We saw the single family market continue to move forward. And we saw the multifamily market actually continue to move forward in COVID. And we were well placed in all of those markets. So I think it was just a bit of planning ahead in terms of that idea of being diversified. Mm-hmm. But then it was a bit of luck of the draw in terms of what we had on our plates at the time too.
Well, that's strategic planning because you're not focusing and niching down in just one type of market. You're diversifying and using all the skills that you have, which that's absolutely very important. I mean, if you talk to financial advisor 101, diversify your portfolio, right? So if you do that in your business as well, it's absolutely very important. And what I love about it is that you guys, for example, diversify projects and what you work on the markets on different type of projects. But any business owner can definitely take this advice and run with it, because if you're for instance in marketing, or for you can diversify on like 2 to 3 type of different marketing or industries that you want to dive in. So this way you'll always be able to, with the up and downs of the economy, you'd be able to do so. Now, another question that I wanted to ask is, because you did mention that your mom was an entrepreneur as well as your grandfather was an architect. Would you say they were your biggest mentors kind of growing up, or do you have other mentors that definitely helped you out think the way you think right now as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, also as somebody that is responsible for other people as well when it comes to payroll?
Absolutely. So I have a lot of mentors. Absolutely. My mother was one of them. And I have business mentors as well as architecture mentors. What we learn in school is fantastic in terms of learning to be great designers and critical thinkers, but we didn't really learn a whole lot about business. The one person I did learn some business about in architecture school was Phil Bernstein, who's the associate dean at the Yale School of Architecture. And he's become an incredible mentor for me over the years, and especially in the last couple of years, which has been great to really reconnect with him after being out of school for 20 years now. And then there are some really strong programs in the Kansas City market for business entrepreneurship. There's the Helzberg Entrepreneur Mentorship Group, which was started by Barnett Helzberg. And we also have the Pipeline Group. There's some smaller groups like Women in Design.
It seems like you diversify your mentorship groups too.
There's quite a few opportunities, and it's really important, I think, and I'm sure you hear people talk about this all the time, work on the business as well as in the business. And it's easy as architects to really think about wanting to just get the design right, focus on the design, focus on the clients all the time. And one of the things COVID, I think, has done is it gave me some perspective and some time to sit back and think about our thought leadership strategy, about, how do we interact as employees together, since we weren't all in a room together naturally having a culture. We had to get really, really specific and very strategic about how are we communicating, how are we working together, how are we moving the ball forward, and all of those kinds of tools around communication, around marketing, around business development, and growing your culture are things that are business tools that I learned from my mentors like, Bob Brush and Terry Dunn and folks like that I'm forever grateful to.
Now, you did mention some important skills that are necessary, not only to be really good at, like, on self-development and in a workplace, but if you could pick like 3, I would say the most important traits that a business owner should have, what would those 3 traits be?
I would say my number one trait is always tenacity, because requires so often for you to pick yourself back up when things get tough and just start again or try harder, or, go after a different client or a different kind of project. So tenacity is definitely one of my favorites. Empathy is another one. You need to be able to really understand your customer and your client, right? To really be able to talk to them, understand how they want to be treated. What are they wanting out of this? What does success look like? That's that deep listening that we talk about on our website. That's absolutely critical. And I think a third one is just courage, right? To be able to really take that leap, to get started, even if you don't have all the answers, and figure it out as you go.
I love it. And if I can add a fourth one, it kind of combines with the first one because it helps you build resilience. But also, whenever you're running a business, you have to learn how to learn fast. Because if you don't learn fast, and if you don't think fast, not necessarily think fast, but just learning fast and being open-minded and coachable to every new information that you might get, it doesn't mean you're going to process 100% of them or take 100% of the advices, but you have to learn how to learn fast, especially in such a fast-paced economy that we're living in nowadays.
That's a great point. I completely agree with that, Romina. And that takes curiosity, right? So
yes, curiosity is another big one too. I know I said only 3, but there's some really key ones.
Yes.
Curiosity or grit. You definitely have to be persistent and consistent, even if you don't see the results right away. Oh my goodness. Let me ask you this though. If you were to have a dream project, what would that dream project? I know you've worked a lot of projects, but is there like a dream project that you would love to work on?
My absolute dream project, I'm so grateful for the projects that we have in our office right now. We have some truly meaningful, wonderful projects that I'd be happy to talk more about. But I'd say my absolute stretch dream project is the presidential library for our first woman president.
Oh, it's a good one. See, when I asked that question, I was thinking more like the White House, but you were close to it. You're like, I'll just take this wing. That, or also I would say Smithsonian museums. Those would be some really amazing projects too.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to visit the Smithsonian museums, and I am amazed at all of them. They're just amazing and everything gorgeous. That they do. Yes, absolutely. Right. Oh my goodness. Now, let me ask you this. To the audience that is listening to this, that is like, I'm loving her energy. I would love to work with her. I'd love to learn more about her. What would be your ideal client? So maybe they have a residential there's a residence that they would like to reconstruct and rebuild, or maybe they're just like, I'm bored of this look. I want a whole new look. Or maybe a business owner. Whoever is listening, who would be your ideal client? So they can definitely reach out and see if it would be a good fit.
Yeah, well, let's see. One of our ideal clients that we have right now is a non-for-profit and community development organization that is developing a shelter for homeless veterans with wraparound services. So it's going to be an enormously beneficial project for the community and for those people specifically. Another dream project that we have is a health and wellness center. That's in a rural area that we're looking at making net zero in terms of energy use. So we're looking at how the project is going to be, utilizing water, and how we're going to be dealing with the waste, and how are we minimizing energy use and also using renewables and balancing that out. So that's a really, really exciting project. Basically, any project where you're interested in doing something that you think is going to be a benefit to the community, that is looking at some aspects of sustainability, ideally wanting to shoot for net zero, and where you appreciate beautiful design.
Love it. And where can our audience actually connect with you as well?
Well, I'm happy to have you reach out to us at info@drawarch.com. That's a good way to reach out to us, or check out our website, like you mentioned, www.drawarch.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter @drawarch. and Instagram, all of that. So there are lots of places to find us.
Wherever you'd be able to connect with social media platforms.
Yes.
And you guys that are listening to this podcast, wherever you get your podcast juice, as a matter of fact, go ahead and click the subscribe button to make sure you do not miss any of our episodes. Dominique, let me ask you this. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell the audience? Maybe a question I didn't ask you, or a last moment thought that you'd like to add to this conversation?
Well, I think it's just a really interesting time for architecture right now. We have an incredible opportunity where I think there's been quite a lot of awakening happening even during COVID in terms of social awareness. And one of the things that we're really focused on a lot at Draw is this idea of equity equals equity. So real estate equity equals social equity. And how do we start to really think about the impact that architecture and the built environment has on the disparities that we see amongst minorities in this country, especially? So we're thinking a lot about that and getting really actively involved with minority developers and trying to see where can we find those new and innovative ways to have development happen in a way that builds wealth, both for women, minorities, and people who have typically been kind of sidelined from the real estate game, as it were. And I think that's something that we're seeing a real tide turn just in the last year, even, that I see as incredibly exciting and a great time to get involved.
I love it. And you guys, you probably are listening to the audio of this, but her face is smiling and shining at the same time, which is amazing. And like I said at the beginning of the introduction, it is a different type of architecture firm, okay? It's not just a regular one, so I was not lying. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing all that with the audience.
Thank you, Romina. I'm really happy to be here again. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for you, my dear listeners, just like I mentioned earlier, hit that subscribe button wherever you are getting your podcast juice from. If you are listening from Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give us a quick 5-star review and a short comment. Tell us how amazing this episode was, or any other episodes of our podcast that you have joined. And until our next episode, I hope you guys are having a tremendous and a fabulous day. Your host, Romina, is out for now. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Architect My Life podcast. We'd love to hear from you on social media using the hashtag Architect My Life podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Aya_Architect My Life. That's Aya, AYA_Architect My Life. And for women firm owners, I invite you to join the Architect My Life private Facebook group. If you haven't already, we'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the show, as well as rate or review us wherever you access podcasts. And if you think you have something to add to the conversation through your success running a business, we invite you to apply to be a guest in one of our upcoming episodes. Visit architectmylife.com/podcast to learn more. Maybe you're not in a position to share your success story yet. That's okay. Take your business to the next level with our coaching and online courses. Get everything you need at architectmylife.com. Remember, there is a way to manage it all so you can achieve more. I'm Maya Schlachter. Thanks again for listening.